What up, friends? Robin Black, your boy here. We're on my YouTube channel, or if you are listening on Stitcher or iTunes, thank you. Sorry we haven't had as many long-form things up. We've been busy working on a lot of projects. We got tons of news coming with podcasts, so thanks for hanging in. Something big developing. Got live shows going on in Ireland and Toronto coming up. Lots of fun things. If you want this t-shirt or other ones, it's shoprobinblack.com. My friends from Periscope on here, they've always been very helpful with giving me ideas and helping me direct my thoughts into these analysis videos. We're going to talk about Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. It's coming up. It's April, maybe? I believe this fight's April 7th. I know it's coming up far. Why are we talking about it now? Because we're going to do 2 or 3. Do I ever get on Facebook Live? I was asked. Yes, sometimes, not super frequently. We'll do more of that. Because I'm going to do 2 or maybe 3 analysis videos of this fight. Okay? And so we're going to get in early on a couple of key dynamics, things we want to talk about. Now, if you're on YouTube or you're on iTunes or Stitcher or any of these places, you don't have to right now, but if you like and you want to put this on pause, in our videos section or in our other podcast section, I had a conversation about Frankie Edgar versus T-City Brian Ortega. It's not mandatory to hear that for this, but I think it'll enrich this conversation quite a lot. So I'm going to touch on it, on the ideas, but we're building on a concept that we were discussing. Now, what is that concept and how will it apply to Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson? And the concept, again, better off to pause this and go back and listen or watch that, but the concept is essentially this. What we cannot do in fighting is put ourselves in a situation where our flaws will be owned by somebody else. Somebody else will exploit our weaknesses, okay? When those weaknesses become very predictable or very simple, we must find new answers. And we is the fighter, the coach, and the global we. Martial arts in general, and the machine of the game, the living organism of the game adapts. So yes, Tony Ferguson will fight Khabib, but all of the knowledge in human history of fighting will have influenced each of them and the people around them and this fight itself. And that's why fighting is so fucking cool, right? Think of that. From time began when leaders of tribes fought each other, all the way through whatever somebody did in China 200 years ago, all the way through 6 weeks ago in Eddie Bravo's gym, and all of those things influence, that global historical knowledge of what fighting is influences this fight. That just fucking blew my own mind right there. And got me really excited. This is the kind of shit, to me, that is what fighting is. Okay, so what do I mean when I talk about exploiting a weakness? That is at the root of what it is to fight, is it not? And yes, it is. If I can find that you are too slow in something and I can make it about that thing, then I will win. If I can find that you cannot stop me from doing something that hurts you, I will win. If I find that I believe you cannot stop me from doing something, and meanwhile you're making me believe that, that will be my weakness and you will start to win. This is fighting. This is what fighting is. The biggest weakness, and then there are systemic weaknesses. And systemic weaknesses are built on belief systems. What does the opponent believe? What do his coaches believe? What does fighting outside of us and our small group of people, what does it believe? And when we get to one spot, and what do we, the viewer, believe? And how does it affect our ability to enjoy these fights and learn something from it and have it change our way of thinking and enrich our lives? And fucking fighting does enrich your life. You cannot tell Robin Black that his life is not better because he's studied martial arts. Everything about my life is better. And when I look to find these truths in what is happening in some of these fights, you find truths that will effectively make you better at being a businessman or fucking driving your car or being a better friend. That's a fact. That is a fact. So how does this, what is the fundamental truth we're looking at? And one of them is the systemic belief that, and we talked about it earlier. If you've checked it out already, thank you. And I'll be brief on it, but we talked about it, Frankie versus Brian Ortega. If we decide Frankie is the better wrestler and he can stop the takedown, old school thinking, he's the better wrestler, I'm putting it in quotes, and he can stop the takedown. That means me, Brian Ortega, must be the better striker. Again, that's in quotes. And I must knock him out or outstrike him for 2 or 3 rounds, or else I lose. I will lose this fight. I cannot live, if I'm Brian Ortega, and I will carry over this to Tony and Khabib as clearly as I can. If I'm Brian Ortega, I cannot live in a fight where if I cannot out-wrestle somebody who is a lifetime wrestler and better at it than me and always will be, and as I improve, so improves he. If I can't create a scenario in a fight in which that is true, where I must outstrike him or I lose. That is not how we win championships. That is not how we grow as a martial artist. That is not how we answer challenges. We don't just say, well, this has to happen, although he's, quote, better. I have to stop him, and if I don't, then I have to do this, or I'm fucked. We cannot approach a fight ever with, if X doesn't equal Y, or then I'm fucked. Or if I can't accomplish A, B, C, I am done. I can't. So this flaw faces anyone who is a great grappler and maybe not as good of a striker, not as good a wrestler, according to our categorization. So Brian Ortega would find a way to the submission of my man, Cub Swanson, my favorite fighter in the world. He'll have learned a massive amount from this, and so will anyone who have watched it. I don't need to out-wrestle him. In fact, I will attempt to submit him by finding other entries. Maybe traditional wrestling concepts will be used to enter into a grappling scenario, and from there, I will use other threats. I'm telling you, and again, we're recapping, Brian Ortega cannot go into a wrestling room with Frankie Edgar and beat him. He can't. Could he do it once out of 50 times? Sure, it's possible. Can he make him tired and maybe do it? Maybe. But, although that's really fucking hard. But I can't live in a world where I can't do something. And I have to surrender the idea that I can't. So I find a new answer. And in his case, that answer is use any type of scenario grappling to threaten a choke or threaten a submission or jump onto the back or begin to grapple without having to accomplish a old school takedown in the traditional sense. So what we're doing is we're finding new doorways into new places. Okay? If you did watch that video, thank you. If you did not, we've just barely touched on it, but it's there. So what does this mean in this situation? Again, if we look at it and we are being self-aware and truthful, and you have to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. We ask the old school question, who's the better wrestler, you or him? The answer is him, and he's going to fucking kill you, right? Khabib, I liked my guy, Ali Aquinta. I saw a little clip of him, or I saw it transcribed, and I saw it, and he's like, I'm not fighting that guy. Of course not. Don't fight Khabib. Don't fight him. He's just going to murder you. It's like, look at him. Look what he can do. Yeah, he's like, he'd have to pay me insane money to do. Of course. I'm not fucking fighting him. That's insanity. Not the way that we have. If you're going to fight him, then there's ice in this. I'm sorry for the thing. I love iced coffee. If you are going to fight him, you must fight him with different truths. Not with the truth that if Khabib takes me down, I get murdered. So I have to stop him. The way I'll stop him is I can't allow him to touch me at all. I can't allow him to get a hand on me or a position in which he can wrestle me, because he is better wrestler and he's better on the ground and he will dominate me and I'm going to be killed. I don't want to be killed. I just wanted to get a fight with a great fighter like Khabib, one of the greatest fighters in the world. I wanted to get paid to fight him. Not me. I'm saying as if I was fucking Tony or someone else. So I must make a new truth. A new truth. And when you hear Eddie Bravo, who is a genius, and hello, Eddie, love you, and Tony, couldn't be a bigger fan, and much as I am of Khabib, they are working from a different truth. Because that moment of belief, got to out-wrestle him, I got to outstrike him. If the answer is Tony must outstrike Khabib, great. I outstrike him for a while. If ever he gets me down, if I just say, well, he's better and he's more dominant, he's going to crush me and I'm dead, Then that now means I have to outstrike him and never get taken down. But everybody else got taken down, except maybe Gleason Tebow. But that was a long time ago. Long time ago. So what do we do? And the answer is we frame it all differently. We frame all the truths differently. Why? Because we have to. And if we do and we're wrong, we're fucked. But if we don't frame it differently, if we don't look at a different perspective and approach the fight with a different perspective and philosophy, we're absolutely fucked. So we will do it that way. And we may not be fucked. In fact, we may find the answer. And that's how the answers are found in the ever-changing global organism that is this giant science experiment that is the UFC. I love, and hopefully we get a chance to talk about it tomorrow, Cowboy versus Yancy Medeiros. Fucking love it. It's going to be so awesome. Sunday night, depending when you watch this. Maybe it already happened. Maybe it wasn't awesome. I thought it. I will think it is because I like all fights. But love it. And I love those fights. And I love with interesting characters, having wild, frenzy, emotionally driven fights and beautiful contests and scraps. And I love it. But for me, at the root of where my curiosity is how is the living thing that is human combat, how is it shifting and changing and finding answers to its own problems? So, again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, it's just what I do. And I do it for my own purposes too. I'm learning here too. These are questions I've found. I know they're the right questions. I've found them through studying fighters and coaches and moments and building on the knowledge that we had and studying human physiology and the mind and all those things. And so I found the right questions and we're trying to work them out. And we don't do it from a point of expertise. We do it from a point of curiosity and being good students. So these are the questions. So again, once more time, sorry to repeat, I cannot live in a fight where if Khabib takes me down, I'm fucked. And just because that was true of Michael Johnson, Michael showed a lot of heart, and he was very proud of that fight. I know he was. And just because that was true of Edson Barbosa, and just because it wasn't true of the one example we made, but let's say it was true of all of them or almost all of them, doesn't mean it has to apply to you. And so that's how they approach it. And Eddie, and I saw him talking about it, he said, we will thank Khabib when he takes us down. We will thank him. Because when we go to the ground, they have re-seen the ground, the guard, as an offensive position. The guard is an offensive position. It always has been. Why is it an offensive position? Because if I put you in a scenario, I've got pink dice on my socks. I put you in a scenario in which both of my legs are in play and both of my hands are in play and my elbows are in play and I can hide myself and your legs are over there. Your legs can push. You use them for leverage, but you cannot strike me with your knees or any of those things. I should be the dominant person. In fact, the guard is somewhat the mount reversed. Why is the mount so dominant? If you take away gravity and leverage of being on top, your legs are way down there, my legs are way down there, and you have mounted here, and all of your upper body is focused up here, and these are taken out for anything other than pushing off the ground or popping you up or moving hip to hip. But now on the bottom, we just flip over. So anyone who's ever trained, when you get swept and you're in guard, where do you end up? You end up just reversed. You're in mount. You end up in guard. So it's a reverse mount, not as good. So he's on top. He can strike you, your head is on the mat. So there are weaknesses that have happened, but you still have more of your body. Anyways, that's very basic stuff. So Eddie and Tony and Ben Saunders and a lot of their whole crew, very interested to see how Calvin Gastelum, who's been working with some of these things, he's not been in that position much, but if and when he is, it'll be interesting. Their belief is we are working from the scenario that this is a dominant position and we are going to elbow the fuck out of whoever's on top of us at all times. We're going to learn how to do it in ways that we don't take risks doing it at all. It's just what happens. I was mounted, you were mounted, and I was punching you. We got reversed. I'm in guard and I'm elbowing you. So it should be the same principle. It is the same principle. Why doesn't everybody believe that? They just stopped believing it. They just stopped. There's no other real reason. They can explain why they stopped. Oh, well, we were losing in that position. The ref couldn't see it. We stopped being able to submit or sweep people, and then we took damage. And no matter how we did on the bottom, the judges, they'll explain why. So there were reasons for them. But fundamentally speaking, the organism, the big picture, just says they stopped. They stopped. They stopped believing that. And so then they operated under a world where the guard was dead. That was a very common thing. People said the guard is dead. Well, what do? Well, from guard, I just initiate stand-ups, and then everybody started doing it. And then they lived in a world where once you got into guard, you stood up, you started to work your way back to the feet, you get an underhook, you heist your hips, and you do that because if the guard is dead, doesn't work, this is what we do. Is that true? No. There are no real, the only truths there are is the undeniable realities of, if I get hit, it hurts. If blood is coming in my eye and it blocks it, I can't see. Gravity always works. When I fatigue, I don't perform as well. The truths of fighting are not these artistic things. They're biological things or they're physics. They're not, the guard doesn't work. The guard doesn't work if I do it. I'm fucking just a blue belt who barely trains and I fought at a low level. It doesn't work for me. It'll fucking work for Tony Ferguson. That's what they believe. That's what they believe. And you notice nobody. So when you are on the ground, since we all know for a fact, when we're on the ground, again, I'm being sarcastic according to belief systems, you have to stand up. You have to heist your hips. You have to stand up. That's what everyone tried to do against Khabib, the Eagle, Nurmagomedov, fucking badass. That's what they tried to do, and they all failed, all of them. Everybody got beat up. He won. Nobody's ever beaten him. So if your answer is, let's do that, there's no evidence to say that would ever work. Instead, Eddie has been working on the guard, this deserted landscape that not only do people not really spend a lot of time on in the world of MMA, but they sometimes laugh at it. Sometimes they scoff at it. One of the greatest commentators in the world is Dominic Cruz. You hear, and actually he's had a very open mind about it. When he and Joe Rogan love it when they're together, because Joe still believes in the guard. Dominic staunchly, who grew up with a wrestling mentality and has trained this, what we call modern until it fails, and one day it will, believes, no, we'll stand up. No, we don't work from there. Oh, see, he didn't submit him, so therefore it's not working. I don't know, man. That's not true. Doesn't mean you stop working on it. Doesn't mean you stop training it. Doesn't mean you stop believing in it. The answer to Khabib is not defend the takedown if I can't defend the takedown. The option that they're going to choose to do is surrender the takedown and use it. Don't stand up, re-guard. Don't hip heist, re-guard. Don't execute the technical stand-up that fighters all train, re-guard. And then when you re-guard, fight from guard as an offensive position. Carve him up, eventually look to submit him. And if he doesn't fucking like it, and trust me, I don't have a dog in this one. They're both geniuses. They're both geniuses. I can't wait for it. It's a wonderful fight. It's supposed to happen a few times. If he doesn't like it, what will he do? What would you do if Tony fucking carved your face up and was threatening you, you were getting nothing going? You know what you would do? What would you do? What would you do? You know what you'd do? Second those feet opened to try to set something up, climbing and working thing, I would stand up. So the answer, as they see it, and they believe they have the strategy and the approach and the technical skill and the philosophy to do, is welcome his takedown, penalize him for it with elbows, threats, and all kinds of things that he doesn't think work anymore. And he could be right. Could be right. Khabib, you try that against Khabib, and you start getting carved up and passed, and you're like, fuck, I was sure that the guard would work. I was sure my re-guard would be better than his passing. I was sure my elbows would do more damage and he'd have to cover up instead of. They believe it. I believe it's possible. But is it possible on this night? We have to find out. It takes a lot of courage to surrender that takedown. Tony has that courage. So that might happen. They say it is. And if I'm Tony, I'll put myself in Khabib's shoes. as well. Khabib is a fucking genius, man. Watch that stuff. It is beautiful. I would do my 1-minute breakdowns of Khabib, but I don't know how. There's too much good shit. And so much of it is connected. It's so hard to break it down in 1 minute on Instagram and social media. But let's say that I'm right. I'm Tony. I'm on the bottom. I carve him up. He stands back up. Well, that's what we wanted, isn't it? If we circle all the way back to how this structure works, we believe, if we're Tony Ferguson, that we can outstrike that guy at distance. The way that people thought about it before was outstrike him at distance and then get away or defend the takedown. Hasn't worked. Hasn't worked. So instead, Tony believes he can beat him at distance. We don't know if that's true. It appears true. But Khabib is going to he's had his moments with big punches and flying knees and stuff. You can't count that out. It is just because he believes, and some experts and a coach and a famous fighter and whoever picks whatever, and a website says here's the fighters' picks, and 7 of them, Tyron Woodley and fucking whoever else, says, oh, Tony's the better striker. That doesn't mean anything. Those are words. But let's say you believe it and you're operating from that situation, that you can beat him up at distance and you have the way. My analysis of him in the past is that could be accurate. Then we would defend the takedown and keep doing that. Or move our feet, not allow him to grasp us, and keep doing that. Instead, what they plan to do is, if you can beat him up at his feet, if and when he enters, use the Brian T. City approach, threaten something real with Tony, snap down City, start to work that Darce, threaten that Darce. If the Darce fails and I'm on the ground, regard and initiate pain, damage, threats. If it works, that man will stand back up, which is what we wanted in the first place. So that's the principle. That's how they all believe they can do it. At least that's how publicly Eddie has talked about it. Not outside of publicly. I've had 2 or 3 conversations with Eddie, 2 over the phone, 1 in person. Laid this out for me. I'm not giving away any secrets. He says this publicly. And there's a reason he says it publicly. Because it's true. That's their belief. Also, it's not posturing. If you put it in that guy's mind, what would you rather do? Say, I'm going to defend the takedown, I'm going to defend the takedown, and then surprise him with elbows? Or get him thinking, what about elbows, man? Get him thinking. Get him thinking. Somebody else has a plan against you. What do? All of that is intentional. All of it's intentional. It's a good plan. It's a workable plan. It takes that belief system that people have. Who's the better striker? Who's the better wrestler? Who's the better grappler? Who's got better ground and pound? And it exploits all of the weaknesses in this dogma and belief system that we have. It does. And he still might get the shit kicked out of him. And to even try it, you have to have incredible courage. He's got to be courageous. Shown that. Showing it many times doesn't mean on the night. You have to prepare to have it on the night. And just because Khabib has consistently been an absolute alpha on the night doesn't mean it happens every night. They both have to do it. But this is the fight. I'm going to look into this way deeper, way deeper. We're going to try to get Eddie on the phone or on Skype or something, and maybe Tony. We haven't done a lot of that on the YouTube channel, but we're working on doing it now, especially for podcast, for audio. But that's the strategy. Is it a good strategy? You know when you'll know? Sunday, April 8th. If it works, it's a good strategy. If it fails, it's a bad strategy. That's not true. I'm sorry. Actually, I take that back. If it works, all that means is it worked on the night. If it works, that dynamic worked. If it works, maybe something else happened, because the process and the result are not always the same. The strategy and the result, not always the same. Performance and result, not always the same. And I just made the cardinal error there, at least one that I see. We see a result and we think it means X. That means he's better. That means he's a better striker. You got knocked out, that means I'm a better striker. Luke Rockhold took a fucking left hand from hell and people are like, see, it's proof he's chinny. It's not proof of shit. Not proof of shit. Doesn't prove anything. That's a conclusion you jump to, and you don't have a lot of information about Luke Rockhold's biological state, the amount of power that was generated in that, how it touched him. You don't have any of that information. You just jump to the conclusion. So, and that's true of this too. It could fail and still be the right strategy. Absolutely, positively, that he can fail and lose, and it's still the right strategy. If only in 1 or 2 differences would have changed everything. Would have been the right strategy. He can win one big cut, but if it looked like he wasn't going to be able to hold that up much longer and that cut never happened, maybe it wasn't. Khabib will lose one day, unless he retires. Everybody does. Everybody does. But right now, he is a monster, and this is a gift of a fight. Both these two. Very special. We've never seen much like this. You can say, you know, dual specialist, outside striker, and a guard player versus a wrestler, and we've seen that. But that's not what this is. This is a whole new thing. And this is a part of that ever-changing thing that is fighting itself. It's fucking amazing. This is what we watch it for. And at least this is what I watch it for. And if you're still here at the end of this video, and if you watch the other one, then trust me, this is what you watch it for too. Because I'm talking about some pretty out there shit. But I love it. It thrills me. We're going to do some other stuff in the next few days. Please watch for it. There is within 48 hours of this, I hope to do another episode of Water, the study of martial arts, connect to this, but also I have a second stream of exploration that is what it is to be. Sometimes we say, you are what you are. Yoel Romero is this. And, you know, this guy, Brian Ortega, is this, and Frankie Edgar is this. And that's one of the biggest blocks and weaknesses and lies in our understanding. But there are certain things that you are. You are the height that you are. That won't change. You have the reach that you do. That won't change. So I'm going to do a Water about what attributes are what they are, and what attributes are ever changing, and the cost, the opportunity cost of moving between those. That's another day. But if you've stayed this long on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud, what are we on? Those? Yeah. And on YouTube, if you've been here, and my friends on Periscope, I really appreciate you guys. I've missed hanging out. I missed Mark, and I missed working on this stuff. We've been doing a bunch of other stuff. But please follow me on Instagram at RobinBlackMMA. We're doing 1-minute breakdowns almost every day. And go to shoprobinblack.com for this kind of action. And if you are in Dublin, Ireland, June 22nd, baby, we're coming. Robin Black Live at the something theater. I forget now. A lot of things in that little noggin. But it's been a slice. Please hit me up on Instagram with any thoughts or any other ideas of where we take this. Thank you so much. Till next time. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends.